Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 2, episode I don't remember because time has no meaning when you stream every day. And welcome in. Good to have you all here. Today, of all days, as we approach the end of yet another season. We had actually a great run of the 1 hour track last night for the last run of that track for the season. And fittingly enough, a track builder who has dabbled in their own right. The one and only, most magnanimous of map makers, TwistedIndy. Hello!
Hey, good morning, Shin. I guess for you it's afternoon, but how's
Just
it
barely.
going?
Only in the most literal of senses.
Right. So, my
Welcome.
dad thinks for some reason because I'm an hour earlier than him that I can tell the future, right? So he's like, "Tell me
Yes.
what the stock market is," because
Yes.
it's only 6:30 in the morning right now. Why it's 7:30 or
That's
8:30 for
right.
him, you know?
That's
So
right. Can
we're
get you
telling the
those
lottery numbers.
horse race results an hour ahead of time.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff,
I'm
good
I'm
stuff.
I'm terrible at reading the future newspaper because I've yet to give them any winning numbers.
Mm. We'll get there one day. Well, welcome
Yeah.
in, sir. Thank you for being on this show.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a strange morning for me. I've had to open and close windows twice already to the combination of humid sauna and rain pouring down. So I may be sweating
Right.
buckets by the end of
Right.
this, but it has no reflection on my uh, participation in the conversation at hand. It's just simply an environmental reflex that I have no control over. So right now, no windows are
Right.
open, and it is
Yeah,
beginning to steam. So it's good.
right. I'll tell you, when I first moved to the Pacific Northwest here in Washington, it was definitely a different climate than
Oh yeah.
Texas was. And you always know who the foreigners are, right? Like they're the ones that are carrying the umbrellas, and
Hmm.
they're not prepared for just this rain shower that might just show up at any point during the day. All the the veterans have like these deployable hoodies. I don't even know where they come from, like where they're
It's just
carrying them.
press a
But
button,
next thing you
it
know,
inflates.
everybody has hoodies on.
Yep.
It's just like I got to figure out this secret. So I understand. If you need to go open, close your window, hey, fine by me.
Well, um, we are both map makers, so I think let's start on some known common ground before we get into the unknown common ground.
Okay.
Um, when I first got into map making, it was because of Hidri, because
Hmm.
Hidri had some unique mechanisms that create a functionality in the map maker that wasn't present in any of the pixel by pixel studio maps. I was like, well, that's interesting to know that it's possible. So I started fooling around, and
Right.
that's kind of how I got into mine. What was your like? Oh, there's a builder in marbles moment, and how did that transpire?
Right. But first of all, I would like to think that I was a professional Fortnite player, but that career ended pretty quick because these crack 13-year-old kids are just ungodly at the
And you get it,
game.
you get
And
enough Ritalin in your system, and you just
oh, no, yeah, absolutely. They have no fear. And you think you can outsmart them because you're older, but that only goes so far, you
yeah, the
know.
actions
When
per
when
minute
when
really
something
comes in.
fearless is coming at you, you just have to know the game or you're not
They've
gonna
they've built four
succeed.
layers of traps around you before you even had a chance to select the right building piece.
Right. I mean, I played a lot of games in the past, like starting with like Warcraft 2, where you could build your own, real-time
Was that
strategy
not
maps.
the
And
best Warcraft? Can we all
oh
just
yeah,
agree?
and they let you like mess with all the coding and as well as much
Right.
as you could, right? So you can make it where 1,000 troops could come out in a
Yep.
second, just as
Yep.
fast as you can spam the button. And
Yep.
so anytime there was like an opportunity to mess with the game, Roller Coaster Tycoon was a big one that I played. All
Another
the
good one.
sim games.
Yep.
So, I was spending a lot of time in the Fortnite builder, and there's a lot of things you can make and cool little mini games that you
Right.
can
Right. Right.
create inside of the creative mode of Fortnite. But you don't get any exposure for it, right? Unless you have like a
Yeah, it's not
posse of a
really
hundred
widely.
something friends, and it's like, hey, come check out this thing I
Yeah,
built.
it's not like
And
Minecraft.
right, and at the time I was playing a lot of games with audio visual, and he was starting to get into the marbles thing, and I was like, I don't know about this whole marbles game. He's like,
Marbles.
"No, you should really come over and you should check it out or whatever." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll watch you stream it for a season and see if there's not something that I can maybe find that
Hmm.
I enjoy." And he mentioned the track builder before, and I opened it at the end of like season 16, I think it was, and started playing with some pieces, uploaded track, and it's a lot of the tracks you see for Thursday Flare, your redemption day, right?
Mm.
Like my first thing I thought of when I was building a track was like, how can I use these pieces in a way they're not designed, right? Like everything I watched on audiovisual stream was tracks seemed very linear. There's a clear start, there's a clear finish, and the
Yeah.
path to get there from A to
Just
B is
just
very
clicking
obvious.
those dots together and calling it a day.
Right. And so I was like, I want to, make a track that, you do have the start and the finish. Obviously, those are required pieces, but it's not so clear as to the way you're supposed to go to get through this. And maybe marbles can choose their own adventure
Mm-hmm.
along the way. So I was playing with the free builder, and of course, it's free at the end of season 16 there. So I was able to play with the full pieces and everything. And then season 17 came, and I was like, man, they want like $15 for this thing. Am I committed to marbles enough to put $15 into this game? And he said, and Audio said, well, you're a streamer. You stream Fortnite all the time and Call of Duty. Like, why not stream and you can get some free pixel by pixel coins? I was like, that sounds fun, exciting. And I opened the races, and then I sat there for like 15 minutes waiting for people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Brand new to marbles.
Slow going.
You're at the bottom of the catalog. No one knows who you are. And all my Fortnite viewers are like, hey, what is this? What are you doing here? I'm like, hey, just type play. Don't worry about it, So I had, my group of 13-year-old to 16-year-old kids that, like to watch me fail at Fortnite now playing marbles. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to all my viewers there, but, you get, I discovered Tilted, and that's what Audiovisual said. Hey, if you just open Tilted, they will come. If you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
If you play Tilted, they will come.
They will.
So I got into Tilted. Actually enjoyed it, right? Because it's more of an interactive
Mm-hmm.
game, or it's like I'm doing something as a streamer. I'm not
Right,
just
right.
moving a camera, right? So yeah, I started getting into tilting. I got enough coins as a streamer, and I was like, all right, let's buy this marble track and let's see what I can build. And I think, what was it? The skee ball table was the first thing that I built. And Desluck, who didn't know me at the time, came around and was like, hey, dude, I already built that. You can't steal my builds. And I was like, I haven't even run races at this point. I don't even know, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now that I got some time in the builder, I understand some things like pixel by pixels. Like, the camera operator needs to know what they're supposed to be looking at, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're building a track, you at least need to have some way of the streamer to follow what's going on. And my skee ball table was just everywhere. It was just vomit of marbles. It definitely was choose your own adventure, and eventually maybe they get to the finish line. Someone's got to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it started out with that, wanting to, break the linear mold, and then I was like, okay, well, I could build cool stuff using the builder.
Mm-hmm.
All the parts in here you can manipulate in a way to kind of make some unique aesthetics, I think you call it.
Correct.
And I was like, all right, so now let's find a way to balance this. Let's make a cool looking track, but also give it some functionality and make it easy enough to follow, but not too easy, so it doesn't feel like a standard track.
Right.
Give it its own unique flair. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. I built the piano and started getting a lot of recognition, and
Yes.
the little dopamine start going off in your brain when you drop into a streamer that you never really talked to and spent a lot of time in chat. They're like, oh, TwistedIndy, dude, I love that piano track that you built. And then it, like, you're motivated from then on. It's like, all right, well, what else can I build? What can I show these guys that they haven't seen before?
I usually get an opposite reaction. It's like, oh God, it's Shen. It's usually the reaction whenever I go into his stream.
Right.
Either tilting or map building. It's usually the same reaction. But,
right.
No, I know what you mean. To that effect, so something you brought up, Deslux. I want to talk with Deslux for a little bit. Is he and I were talking about you when you were starting to get notarized in the maker community. Because you initially didn't know like snapping function or mathematical symmetry and things like that. When did that come about? Like, who told you about it, and how much did that change your builds?
Well, when I first started streaming my builds, like, y'all didn't know how bad it was. And then I started streaming me making a build, and Hedry dropped in, and I think Desluck dropped by. And they're just like, what are you doing? Like, you could do this so much easier. You're spending 20 minutes trying to make a disco ball and getting the one piece angled just right, so it looks spherical and looks correct. And I didn't know anything about using, switching from the world grid to the local grid, and I knew there was grid snapping because track pieces they snap into each other, but I didn't know you can set like increments of 10, 20, 50, things like that to
Hmm.
make things more aligned. And watching your Ask a Builder anything, learn a lot of learned a lot from those actually, more than I want to admit. So yeah,
Well, that's why I do it. And I'm actually going to start putting those clips up on YouTube because I don't have time to do like a full Tahiti Monday like comprehensive builder introduction. But I
right.
think I can do like an FAQ thing. So I already have up the how to turn on the boosting track.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm just going to do small stuff like that for now. And then once I get the tilted Tahiti done, I'm going to start doing more comprehensive like this is the builder. This is the world settings. This is the track
Right.
pieces, right? So
And I think there was a write up that Hedry might have done at one point to actually
yes.
just learn what the tools are and
Yeah.
the
I think it was
basics
Hidri
of
and Senshin
opening
worked
the
on it.
editor and knowing what you're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing.
So
But I used to do some 3D software. What was it called? Lightwave, and then 3D Studio Max. So I've had some experience in the past, like
yeah.
working in a 3D space.
Yeah.
It was all recreational. Used to do stuff with the TV station back in college. I was a radio TV major
Okay.
in school, and when I got into the program, it was probably like 2007, and everything still felt like a very old magazine company or
Right.
old school TV station. And I'm like, why aren't we using some cool graphics? Like
Right.
why
Right.
why is everything so binary and flat and boring? It's just, and then TwistedIndy shows up and just starts messing with everything, and I'm like, your equipment can't even handle these processes. Like I'm done with you guys. So but yeah, no, that got me dabbling in working with some 3D software and learning, about three-dimensional objects and moving through a 3D space. So
Yeah.
when it came to once I figured out, like, hey, you can actually type in the coordinates, the X, Y's, and Z's, and the angles and everything, like all that, I was able to pick up fairly quickly.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
I will say, like for most of the tracks that I build now, I open the builder. It's one of two things. Like I'm just messing around with pieces and like, what can I do with this piece?
Mm-hmm.
And then something clicks and it's like, okay, well now I can build a track around this little
Yep.
experiment I have going on. And the other thing is like I already know what I want to do. Like I had the whole carnival theme going on, and it's like, okay, well, what carnival games out there, and now how can I make that work in a Marvel setting? So I feel like I'm coming up to my sophomore year, though.
Right.
You have a band you really enjoy. They drop that first album, and it's awesome. And then now you set that bar, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, a TwistedIndy track. What is it gonna be?"
Mm-hmm.
And then you just throw something out there that I put the name Troll in it just so they know. It's like this is not full quality TwistedIndy tracks right now. This is experimental stuff. Just
Yeah.
throwing some
Yeah.
feelers out there.
In that vein, the question I have: aesthetic in builds under or over function. What's your take on the matter?
Um, well, I think if you look at my tracks, there's probably 250 pieces of aesthetics and about 70 pieces of track. Well, that math doesn't add up right, but I very rarely, if I'm going for aesthetics, I don't think about the race very often. I was talking to Desluk in someone's chat the other day about it, and he was like, he tries to have that balance. Like he has an idea of
Mm-hmm.
what he wants to build, but then he incorporates the race as he's going along. And for me, it's like, forget the race. I'm trying to make a spaceship, or I'm trying to make the Death Star, whatever it is, and then I'll find a way to make the track
Yeah.
functional. Now the
I
oh,
definitely
go ahead.
try to have a skeleton in place if I'm going to do an aesthetic build. So
Right,
it's kind of like I do a minimalist track. Like, what is the possible route of a marble through this? And then I'll
right.
do the aesthetics, and then I'll fine tune the functionality afterwards.
And I
So,
think it was last Thursday you were streaming. You're like tearing somebody's track apart. Like, oh, you don't need that piece. You don't need that piece. And it's like,
yep.
how many pieces could I have saved if he was going through my 1 hour track? And
Oh yeah.
how much more complicated? Now, I will say it was like an 8 hour track at one point, and I was like, this is just too hard. You're, I
We
mean,
made
these
it
pins
easy.
just had. There was a sequence like every 5 minutes. These pins would be in the right orientation, and if a marble was there,
I
it would
remember
make its
that
way
on the
through.
walls. Yeah.
And I was
And then you
just
had a lot
like,
more
okay,
rotating portals on the portal bridge. I love the portal bridge. That is a brilliant
right.
idea. That is a
No, no,
brilliant idea. I want to
that was like
capitalize on
an
that.
accident that happened, and I was just like, no, we're going with it. But no, not a lot of people run the hour-long track, but the ones that do, they have appreciation for it, and I think
Hmm.
there's an audience for every track out there. That you're
Well,
not going
there
to
is
please
now.
everybody.
There, when I first made the 1 hour track, there was not an audience. Can I just say?
I think it's at like 16 runs for the season. It's been up for about a month now, so I think that considering that you're taking up a half hour of someone's
Yep.
stream, at
Yep.
least with my track, like that shows that they have appreciation for the craft.
Hmm. Hmm.
No one may actually be watching it; it might just be running in the background. But hey,
People watch it when I do it, so someone's watching something.
yeah, take your wins when you can get them.
Yeah. So yeah, all good stuff. Do you have any questions relevant on your end of things you want to throw my way?
Yeah, I mean, you've been in marbles long before me. Obviously, you're a tilted champion. I think like a 5 time, 6 time. I don't know.
Six
Dark
time.
Madden took it away
11,
from you. But
11 through 16.
so what brought you into marbles? Because I've seen you play other games too. You're an entertaining streamer.
Try to be. Try to be.
Why marbles? Why marbles?
Marbles was wide open. I got in between season 6 and season 7, and the streamer side of things were pretty common ground, low key, nothing
Right.
going on. So I was like, I had been looking for a new game that I could get into because I was kind of like in a lot of Blizzard games, so Hearthstone, StarCraft 2, all pretty much saturated, nothing really going on.
Right.
I was doing some indie games and some B Studio games like Darkest Dungeon, Don't Starve, stuff like that.
Right.
So found Marbles and I was like, well, this is wide open. I could do a lot with this, and
Hmm.
I just went for it.
Nice. Nice.
So,
And then tilted. I guess you just are a natural.
I have played similar games to Tilted in real life and digitally
Okay.
previously, but
So you're a
that was
gymnast.
more that was more in relationship with Pixel, I think,
Okay.
because I think at this point I have such an ability to break down games,
Mm-hmm.
and especially Marbles, since I'm so much more familiar with it, um, that I have a lot of critical feedback that I can give in a constructive way.
Right.
So, with something like Tilted, it was like, okay, there's a lot here, but there's some things are missing, right? And so I
Right.
just kind of embraced it for the sake of what it could be, because I was like, this is going to be something awesome. We just have to get it there.
Right.
And what it needs is it needs a lot more people playing it. It needs a community built around it. It needs a support network to teach people how to tilt, to get everything going. And that's kind of where the
Right.
Tilted Army came from. It was like, we need to orchestrate a militia to take on this beast.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we are, season 18, brand new revamp, and, things go in full swing.
Right.
So,
I noticed this about you. At least 2 of your days is you're teaching building, you're teaching tilted, like
mhm.
just a natural instructor here. Where does that come from?
It's pretty much a standard philosophy is that if you know how to teach, you can teach anything, right? It's not your knowledge of the
Right.
subject, it's your knowledge of the ability to teach.
I thought it was
So,
if you can't do, you teach. You seem to have both talents.
yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that sentiment. A lot of the greatest scientific papers written were done by professors.
Oh, true,
Yeah,
true.
so
It's not the students that they have that are doing the research for them and them claiming the
yeah,
results.
the students wouldn't know what to do if the professor didn't write
Yeah,
the
hey, yeah,
experiment and the theory,
huh,
right?
yeah, that's
So
true.
it's good to have the grunt work, but you also need to have someone who knows what they're doing and can get it
Right.
done.
Wasn't that some discussion around the Edison light bulb that it was like his assistant that actually made it?
Well,
He was just the
Edison
idea
didn't do
man.
anything. I think that's fully established. He was just he was the original patent hoarder.
Right.
That's all he was
He
doing.
was just the smart businessman to decide to put
Exactly.
a patent on it.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
So I wouldn't give Edison credit for anything. Absolutely not.
Right. Right. Well, I'll say like it is good to go into like the pixel by pixel Discord and go down to the builders tab and like just see new track builders asking questions. It's like, oh, I know these answers, and
Hmm.
you do want to share that information,
Yep.
but you want to keep some things secret. Like for me, it's that indie touch that some people just can't figure out how to do. And it's like, well, now I know something that someone doesn't. How long
Right.
is it going to take someone else to figure it out?
And that's a line I try to walk with on my Ask a Builder Anything. But what I've ended up doing since I've been building for so long is now the trick to a Shen build is just having a mathematical and time devotion to a track that no one else is going to do. Right.
Right.
So
Yep.
you would have to be able to do the trigonometry that I do to
Right.
create some of the tracks that I create. And you would
Well,
have to be willing to work 30 hours on a map to create the map setting.
apparently,
So it's
all of our
like,
physics are about to get ruined with friction. So
well,
you're
and that's the thing. So I'm going to have to go back through all my 1 hour maps.
300,000 shot,
Yep. And
across an x-axis.
recalculate a couple things. So it's, and that's kind of the thing with like the 1 hour build. I'm going to be honest. When you said you were doing a 1 hour build, I was nervous. I was like, oh, dang, I'm losing the monopoly. Here we go.
Uh-oh.
But then I saw your track and I was like, oh, thank God. He is human.
You didn't see the original one, I don't think. The one that I stayed up for like 36 hours straight building to see if I could do a 1 hour
sent me
track.
a raw file, but that may have been an edited one after the fact.
Right. I think I still have it somewhere because the whole reason my starting, block is all these marbles drop and they go into 8 different pans was so
Yep.
they were segmented off like yours and they can go
Yep.
in one direction, the other. And it was taking too long for 20 marbles to get through one section. So I was like, okay, well now I need to have the marbles that do get done with their section go help these marbles over there.
Yep.
So then it evolved to let's just put these into a straight line. But I still have this real complicated starting piece that looks really cool. So
Yes. I did
decided
like that.
to waste
It's a little, little inefficient. It's a little inefficient.
There was a reason for it at one point.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
I decided I wasn't going to undo everything.
The version I saw did have that initial divide. So I've seen the
Right.
initial divide and I saw the straight line one,
Okay.
which is the one we ran 2 weeks ago or a week
Right.
ago, whatever it was.
But I do feel like a 1 hour track needs a dramatic start and nothing like a bunch of
Yes.
free falling marbles and shattering in
I've-
every direction.
My start for next season's 1 hour track is this. All the marbles are in the start piece and you hit the start button.
Oh, no, I saw you building that the other day.
That's the dramatic start for my
Yeah.
next one.
Nope. I instantly had an appreciation for this. I was like, I love it. Street viewers may hate it, but
It's gonna be maddening. It's gonna be maddening.
oh yeah, I'm pretty sure some of those obstacles marbles will never make it through. But you can spend the time to figure that out.
Yeah, I'll sort it out. Don't worry. I'll submit my full report at the end of the next season.
Right. Now there is the balance. Like now that I'm more established and you've been a track builder for a while, and people start coming to you and like, hey, I have a tournament. I would really like for you to build me a track. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, there's only so much time in my day. I'd love to build you a track. The business side of track building, is that something that you even think about, or does it just come up? And
I think about it now
right.
because back then I didn't have as busy of a schedule. I was only doing like 4 or 5 streams a week.
Oh,
And
okay.
I didn't really have a lot of series going. I think I only had 2 series going at that time, so the other 4 days of stream was just kind of random whatever.
Right.
So now that I'm fully booked essentially, I really have to start kind of monetizing my time. So and I even think with the 1 hour tracks, I think we were talking about it in one of our streams, is doing like a track pack. It's like, I'll give you these 5 tracks for $10 or something. Because,
Right.
if each 1 hour track is about 30 hours of my life on average, some 50, some 25, that's a lot of time. You're getting like 250 hours of my time.
Right. And
So
the people that
even
are
charging you
benefiting-
$10 is insultingly low.
Right. And just streaming the track building content, like you've established yourself pretty well, and I'm still fairly new in the whole marble scene as far as the streaming side, but the revenue from a streamer standpoint is coming from the subs and the bits, and a lot of the racers that do the tournaments and everything like that it feels like they're benefiting from your work. But I didn't get into marbles for the money side of it, but you start thinking about it, right? Because now you have people coming to you like, hey, can you build me a track for my tournament? And I'm like, okay, well, during your tournament there's going to be 2 hype trains and there's going to be this many bits, this many subs, like $25, I'll build you a track.
Yeah. I'm currently doing like 15 an hour for commissions, but I think with the track pack, I can kind of just do like a package deal kind of a thing. So
Right.
we'll see
And
how
there's a
that
lot of
goes.
older tracks. Like you probably have a whole catalog of
Only about
tracks that
130.
Okay, exactly. It's like, do I even upload the carnival tracks next season, or do I say, whoever wants these carnival tracks, take
Move
them.
on.
I'm going with all fresh builds.
That's
And
my
for the most
approach.
part, this season I do have a tournament, but it's like in 2 weeks, so I don't know exactly how many tracks I'll be able to crank out in that time. But it's a casino themed tournament, but it's also Halloween's coming, so I'm building these scary Halloween tracks, and then these very flashy casino
Cool.
style games. So that's pretty much the plan for this season coming up. I'll probably do, I don't know, there's only so many iconic casino style builds I think I can do. You got to do the roulette, you could do a slot machine, and then I love your poker table,
I'll
poker
definitely
gone wrong.
revamp that for you for your tournament.
But outside of that, it's like, okay, well, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to have a series of 5 different slot machines, right?
Right,
So
right.
that one will be pretty basic. I'll
What
be
if
able to
you
get
did
that done.
something where like the marbles went like through the slot machine? Like you have 3 water wheels and the marbles go through the slot machine and then they fall out the coin
Right.
slot at the bottom. That would be a good build.
Right. Well, I'm playing with the lights right now. Since we have different color options now for the light board, we can go cherry and orange and watermelon, like have them start at the
Right, right.
bottom and come up, and you can actually see the different symbols on the slot machine. I mean, that's going to eat up a ton of pieces, but I'm aesthetics first, so you
There you
know,
go. There you go.
if the race is the starting pin is at the lever of the slot machine and they go down and then around a few times, and the win bucket is where a bunch of coins fall out, then hey, we have a race.
Sounds good to me.
But I do like the idea of you go into the machine as a coin, and it's like a pinball machine almost. You're going through the mechanisms of the inside of a slot machine. Although it'd be hard for a camera to follow that. You'd have to do a cutaway or something.
For sure, for sure. So let's change gears a little bit here. How's life on the water when you get the chance?
It was rough yesterday. I work, let's see, 3 or 4 days a week on the water. I travel with my job, so 9 months out of the year, I'm living out of hotel rooms for the most part every Tuesday through Friday. So one thing about streaming is it's hard to have a schedule when your work schedule pulls you away basically from
Mm-hmm.
quality internet. And
Yeah.
I tried to tilt a few times on hotel Wi-Fi, and for the grinders out there, they're not watching anyway, so they don't care how bad it looks. It looks good on my end as far as running the game, but for any type of quality production and content, it's not there. So for the most part, my streaming days Saturday, Sunday, Monday. As far as life on the water, it's fun. Sometimes it's rough. The
Mm-hmm.
weather changes pretty quick, and
Yep.
I prefer to be the guy that's in control of the boat, so you can at least anticipate what's happening. The people in the back, I feel bad for sometimes. We call
Yeah.
it cabin salad when everything just ends up on the floor because the water is rough, and we've lost a few laptops to coffee spilling over, and people who decide to have a big breakfast don't have a big breakfast anymore, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's the nature of the business. At least where I'm working inside the Puget Sound area, which is like you go inside the panhandle of Washington, there's these protected waterways that are,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for the most part, you're not getting a lot of rough weather blow through there very often. So
That's good.
I'd say 80% of my days on the water, completely flat and calm. And I will say one thing about having adventurous jobs, because I've had a handful of them, is once you start earning money doing it, you don't want to do it with your free time. People are like, hey, you want to go out this weekend on the water? I'm like, absolutely not. I've been on the water for 4 days. And you start to like not even appreciate the days that like people pay money to go out on the water and go
Yeah.
watching orcas, and here I am, like, it's a revenue for me, and I take it for granted sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with my job, I do some scuba diving as well. So
Okay.
we monitor and manage the shellfish industry in the state of Washington is what I'm a part of.
Nice.
So we have to go down there and just make sure the people that have a lease are within their boundaries, and
Right.
they're not doing any fishy business down there. They're not
No
messing with the
dredging.
ecosystem or anything like that. So a lot of people, it's like the job when you like being a safety guy. When you show up, they have high respect for you, but they don't want you there. Like
Yeah.
they know you're poking around trying
Yeah.
to find a violation for them. So
Yeah. What is your favorite shellfish either raw or cooked?
I'd say oysters is probably my favorite, but I don't eat a lot of it. Um, razor clams can be pretty good.
Hmm.
I will say, like, coming from the South, like, there's not a lot of shellfish that comes out of the Gulf that you enjoy.
Right.
At least not for me. Like, I do like the crawfish and the shrimp and the crab and everything you can get down there, but I wasn't really. It's like coffee stands up here in the Pacific Northwest. It's like there's two in every parking lot, right?
Right.
So I wasn't a coffee drinker, and then I came up here and I was like, man, I got to get on this coffee thing. If I'm going to be accepted by the locals, then I need to figure out this coffee thing.
For sure.
So shellfish has been something that's been growing on me. Like I got into the industry more because of the diving side. I'm not a biologist in my background. I wasn't even a boat operator at the time. It's all skills that I picked up here. But they really needed people that knew a lot about diving. And when I was going through college, I got my degree in radio, TV, and journalism. I failed a class, communications law, so I had to retake it. But it was one of those 300 level courses that you have to pass in order to take all your senior level classes.
Right.
So I had an entire semester basically of free time that I had to fill my schedule with. Because if you're on student loans, you have to have at least 12 hours to be considered a full-time student. So I took a ton of philosophy classes, ended up being a philosophy minor.
Thanks.
And then scuba diving was something that I got into just as kind of a one-off course that I could fill my time with. I think I took guitar. That's why I have a guitar in the background. Don't ask me to play it. I own a guitar, but I don't play the guitar. But yeah, I got into scuba diving, took it for that semester, really enjoyed it. Talked to the instructor, asked how I can get more involved in diving. And she's like, well, my husband owns the dive shop in town. Why don't you go talk to him? And I said, hey, I'm a broke college student, but I like this diving thing. Is there something we can work out so I can get more education in that? And he was like, well, if you don't mind working, I have a ton of work that I need done on my farm. And if you put the hours in on my farm, I'll go ahead and, we'll write you, go grab whatever gear you want in the store. Just tell me whatever training you want. And we'll write up the tab. We'll put it on this little pegboard. And as you work off those hours, we'll deduct it from this total. And once you're done, you're done. If you want a job, you can keep around and keep working. So, yeah, a lot of hot Texas summers, baling hay, building fences, painting. Oh man, my painting job is terrible, but he kept putting me on these painting jobs.
I don't know what's worse, summer painting or summer baling hay. Those are like the two worst summer jobs I could think of.
I completely destroyed this guy's lawnmower too, because I didn't really think about the hay that's building up underneath the mower when you're cutting, and it's all the very dry grass, and there's these belts that are going around turning the blades, and those belts are causing friction, and next thing you know, his mower is on fire. I'm running around trying to figure out, like, how can I put this fire out, and I'm way out in the middle of this guy's field. The only thing I can find bucket-wise is his dog's bowl, right? So I was filling up this dog bowl, and I'm running out there. Like, by the time I get out there, there's probably a cup of water left in there. But this is not going to work. But good. The area that I was cutting was mostly cleared out, so I was able to stomp it out the best I could. It wasn't like a big old forest fire.
Yeah.
That they could label Indy started this as part of a, he didn't know what he was doing trying to bale hay. Which being from Texas, people have a lot of assumptions. Like you know how to ride a horse,
right?
You know how to work a tractor. All those movies that are filmed in like West Texas that might as well be New Mexico and Arizona is not a good representation of Texas, but. I get it, and I can appreciate it. I actually did ride a horse for the first time when I went to my Yellowstone trip the other week, and I can see the enjoyment of horseback riding. My parents, not so much, who are older and have bad joints and everything. 3 hours on a horse was
a little brutal,
a death sentence. So I worked at the dive shop. I worked off all my gear, and I got up to being a dive instructor with Patty. And started working at the college as a dive instructor through the program there at the university. And then I was working the shop one day, and the phone rang, and it was NASA on the other line. They're like, hey, we are looking for divers, and we're wondering, is the owner there? We'd like to talk to him. I was like, you don't need to talk to the owner. Just, hey, I'm right here. Talk to me. I'm Indy. What can I do for you? And it ends up being that the person that was the program manager at the time went to the same university I did and worked at that dive shop that I did. And I guess
Wow.
every 3 or 4 years when they're looking to recruit new divers, they always give just a courtesy call to see if there's any prospecting divers over there. So, talk about a job just thrown in my lap.
Fortuitous, yeah.
Yeah, just right time, right place. I'm like, I just graduated. It was 2009. The housing market crashed and the economy was terrible for finding jobs anyway. So it was just like, sign me up. And it was in Houston, which was like, I can move back to where my parents and my family are at to go, start a career. And the NASA Neutral Buoyancy Lab, I don't know if you've, seen Rocket Man.
Well,
There's a
so
couple of
here's the
movies
thing
that,
is, as you were saying, like most people think Texas is, cowboys and open ranch, but like most of
right.
Texas, at least especially where my uncle lives, which is in Houston, it's highways and air conditioning is really
Oh,
that's that's the
oh
Texas
yeah.
I think most people in Texas know. Is
That's when they get rid of their car, right?
yeah.
If your air conditioner doesn't work, it could be a perfectly good car, but that's not a good car
Yeah,
to a
it's
Texan.
just highways and air conditioning out there. But
Right.
so when I was out there, I actually did visit the NASA Center in Houston,
Okay. Nice. Yep.
and that was actually one of my questions because we got to see most of the facility. We even got to see like the robotic research facility where they're like
Oh, nice.
testing
Yeah.
robots, problem solving and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But there was one building that we just drove by, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't show you what's going on in there." And it was the
Right.
vibration durability test lab. Oh,
Oh
I would
man.
give half of my body limbs to go into that building. Do you
Right.
know anything about that that you can share with the public?
I know that I signed a 10-year non-discussion agreement. My job ended in 2013 with NASA, so I guess in 2023 we can talk specifics. But that was definitely a building that they took your cell phone away from you when you went into it. There was no pictures allowed, and for the most part, the things that we did in the neutral buoyancy lab, which was their really big dive tank, 40 feet
Yeah,
deep, 200
yeah.
feet long, and 100 feet wide, like 2.2 million gallons of water. It was all there. There's three different things that we're doing. We're either training astronauts that haven't actually been to space yet, so they
Right.
can get a feel for what it's like to be in the spacesuit and move around the space station and just get used to using the different tools and learning the different modules where everything's at. And they're not real astronauts. We call them ass cans for astronaut candidates,
Right.
and they make an ass of themselves. um, but yeah, the next thing we did in the pool was testing for new equipment, research and development, trying out new techniques or installing new modules that might be being added to the space station. And that was a lot of the do not talk about stuff. And we're
Mm-hmm.
taking your camera away from you. This stuff doesn't even have copyrights or patents or
Yeah, this stuff
it's
doesn't
very
exist.
yeah. Basically, you just be a diver, blow your bubbles, and mind your business of what's going on here.
Crazy.
One of the things that they were working on that we can talk about is capturing asteroids. The
Mm.
discussion of mining asteroids was
Yes.
really big around the time that I was there because the space station has already been built for the most part. So we're at the maintenance phase of the space
Right.
station. The shuttle was retired, and now they're like, okay, well, what's the next project? Are we going to the moon? Are we going to Mars? What is something that we can sell to the president to keep getting revenue? And this whole asteroid capturing
Mm-hmm.
idea came into the mix. And as far as working in the pool, you have a man in a space suit with a face shield, and going up to an asteroid and trying to swing a hammer, we learned very quickly is bad for the face shield, right? So they're
Yes.
like, okay,
Yes.
well, what kind
The
of tool can we
most of
invent?
the time, the
You know?
asteroid's already exploding anyway, with all the steam building up in it. So the last
Yeah,
thing you need to do
exactly.
is
That was
add
part
more
of the discussion. They're like,
projectiles.
we have no idea. This could be some compressed gas in here that'll explode on impact.
Yeah.
Like, do we really want to put an astronaut into that situation? And
The
so
best
one of the
model I heard of was the swarm of laser bees.
oh,
I love
nice.
that idea. It's a great idea.
I'll tell
I'll,
you
if
one
I
of
may, I'll
the
give an amateur description, and then you can feel free to
okay,
tell me
okay,
what
okay,
actually happens. But
okay.
so
Let's
the
go.
idea
Let's hear it.
is, you can't just like throw a lasso around an asteroid and pull it down to Earth, because that'd be the same thing as an asteroid crashing into Earth. It would be Armageddon essentially,
Right.
right? So the best thing you can do is you you slow an asteroid down so that it falls into Earth's orbit, and then you get it into like a satellite orbit of Earth, harvest it
Right.
like in the space station region, and then you just send down the cargo into the ocean or whatever and collect it. Right.
Nice.
So the idea to slow down an asteroid is you get this swarm of tiny little laser satellites, and they're solar powered, and they just shoot a small laser at one side of the asteroid to slow it down. And each bit that breaks off of it kind of slows it down, kind of that, reaction,
Opposite
action, forces.
Yeah.
And so then you just have this swarm of bees, and, they're orbiting the asteroid. And when they're on one side, they shoot it with a laser, and then on the other side, they're charging with the sun. So you slow the asteroid down that way, and then you get it into the orbit. You do your space station harvesting area thing there, and then you just send it down. But that's what I'm aware of. What are you aware of?
I totally like the idea. What we were working on was basically a robot that goes out there and throws out a big inflatable basket and then collapses around the asteroid and then uses boosters that are attached to it to reduce the speed and bring it to Earth's orbit, just kind of like you mentioned. And then having a module that can then fly out there and connect to it and do the harvest with like a robotic arm, reach out there and do the mining. So if something goes wrong, then it's only a $2 million piece of equipment and not your $2 million astronaut that's taking the explosion, basically. So no, you're right on track, basically, for that.
I do like the swarm of laser bees. It's just there's a certain aesthetic to it. I really do.
Yeah, I heard a swarm of bees, and I was like, well, I need to hear this exclamation. Like, what? We got space bees now, and that led me to a conversation that I had with one of the astronauts that they do a lot of experiments on the space station.
Yeah,
and some experiments they may disclose, or it's just not picked up by the media for one reason or another. But bringing insects into space and fish into space has been a thing. And one thing that they learned about fish, if you put them in an aquarium, they don't know which way is up in space.
Right, because they have swim bladders. And swim bladder would just take them to the outside of the bubble, not necessarily to the top of the bubble.
Right, yeah. I mean, and then there is no top in space, right? It's all lingering anti-gravity, microgravity. Right, but if they turned on a flashlight, all the fish will turn their back to the light. So they know light is up, so they can move the flashlight around the bowl and almost control the fish. Yeah, so they're rotating in different orientations with the light to their back.
Fantastic.
Spiders have been a terrible failure in space.
I would imagine.
Because they want to jump, right? So you have a spider that's trying to build a web that has these powerful legs to function in a gravity atmosphere that then jumps in a no gravity atmosphere. Let's just say there's a lot of splatting on the other side of the the aquarium or whatever you want to call it.
And like the majority of their silk product, like their ability to use silk, relies on either tension or hanging, which is gravitically based. So when you don't have that natural tension, everything's just going to get tangled up into a knot and just be useless.
Right. So. I mean, I like the idea. Can a spider build a web in space with no gravity? But if the spider keeps killing themselves trying to jump from one area to another, then
to my knowledge, I think frogs were the first animal actually experimented on in the space station.
Right. But, I mean, we have the Russian monkeys, but
well, yeah, but that was more just what happens to a living organism at that altitude, rather than let's actually conduct an experiment in free fall.
Right. And we also, they had the discussion of putting a person on Mars, and at least from the astronauts' perspective, they said we probably won't be able to do that till about 2050. I mean, they need a Walmart-size spaceship just to get the supplies out there that they need. And the idea of we can send stuff ahead. Right. We can have checkpoints, but it's not like Mars is always in the ideal space. We're all orbiting around the sun. So there's this ideal window of when we would launch from Earth and be able to land on Mars. And then you're basically there for 15 months until it's in that ideal spot to come back to Earth. So okay, well, how do we sustain a human, by the time they even get to Mars, that they're able to walk out of the spaceship and actually do meaningful research. And for now they're doing exercises every single day to keep their muscle functionality, and it's a rigorous routine that they go through every single day, just so when they get back on Earth, they can climb out of the space shuttle and walk on their own, right? It's not 3 or 4 days of having doctors nurse you back to health. They're getting quicker, but it's still what's a person going to do when they get to Mars? There's not someone there, to our knowledge,
Right.
that's going to just open up the
Right.
capsule and help you with your
Now,
whatever.
fortunately, there is less gravity on Mars, but there's still
Right.
gravity.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we could put them to sleep out there, so we don't have to feed them the entire time. So you don't need this, like I said, a Walmart-sized space station just for groceries to get
Right.
people
Right.
out there and back. And they say yesterday's coffee is today's coffee because they do the recycle of the urine to
Yeah. Yeah.
to keep their water system going. Stuff that may not think about while you're up there and drinking your coffee. It's
Turning the carbon dioxide back into oxygen and all that good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So the space station is definitely doing a whole lot of good research if we do want to bring mankind out there further into space. But I think going back to the moon would be a more realistic objective.
Yeah, and even just as a research, like the moon could be the Mars colonization research lab, essentially.
Right.
So,
And I don't know if it would mess with the moon's rotation around Earth or not, but if you could launch from a lower gravity planet
right,
or
yeah.
moon, then your speed is a lot easier and you can have
Basically,
heavier
just use a
cargo.
gun and you could escape the moon's orbit.
Right,
You
right,
just load them into the cannon and just shoot them at Mars.
right. That's pretty funny. Like we're talking about using weapons in space with this whole Space Force thing going on, and they said, well, the problem with shooting a gun is now you're going backwards and the gun's going forward because that recoil is now you. So be advised when you shoot, it's not just a bullet that's going to be traveling. You're going to be going with it. And that was one of the problems we ran into in the pool is, you can simulate gravity as much as you can underwater
Yeah.
using, neutral buoyancy techniques and moving weights around, but they're still shifting in the spacesuit. So if they're
Yeah.
working upside down, all their weight's on their shoulder, all their blood's rushing to their head. And as far as moving in the pool, you have the resistance of the water. So it's very,
Right.
tiresome to get going. And then when you're ready to stop, you can just let go and gravity will basically keep you there. And space is very low energy to get moving. Go, 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 go. But when you're ready to stop, like you better hold on and grab on. And one of the jobs that we did in the pool was when they're using things like a drill, if they're not tethered off to the space station using a drill, we're supposed to start turning them.
Right.
Right? Because depending on the torque, you're going to be the one spinning and not the
space station weighs, millions of pounds and you weigh a couple hundred. So when you put a drill between the two of you, only one of them's going to start spinning.
Exactly. So, I mean, it was just some cool things like that when, you're sitting there in the pool and you're doing these experiments and watching the astronauts work and you're learning all this stuff that, it's like, how did I even get to this spot in my life where I'm scuba diving with astronauts and having drinks with astronauts? And it was a really cool experience. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is all handled by contractors.
Yeah.
And every so often new companies come in and win a contract. And that's what happened in my case. And they only needed like 6 divers. They already had a team put together that was going to come in and take over this contract. So it was like 20 of us applying for 6 jobs and, just didn't make the cut for the renewal. So then that's when I was like, all right, well, now what am I going to do? I get back into my major of radio, TV, and journalism, which the goal there was like live production, like being in a theater or a concert hall or doing sports coverage from a live event, at the arena there. It wasn't so much being the personality in front of the camera or being the news anchor or being the radio DJ. Although given the opportunity, I'm like the first guy to jump on a mic and be like, yo, what's up? Twisted Indies in the house.
Excuse me.
But I mean, a lot of those jobs, it's like they know somebody or their dad's been in the industry for 50 years and the kid starts out, just rolling cable for him at the age of 12 and they basically inherit those jobs or I basically didn't need a degree if that was the direction I wanted to go.
Right.
And I haven't even used my degree. I guess I could check the box that I have one, but the diving thing worked out for me. And, the question came up, well, like, am I willing to relocate for a diving job? Because I'm not a commercial diver. Like, I don't have the hard hat experience. I'm not an underwater welder and doing the underwater assembly. There's people on my dive team that have that background.
Right.
But for the most part, I'm a professional diver. I'm not even like the marine biologist side. Like a lot of the people on my dive team have that degree.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just professional diver. I teach people how to blow bubbles underwater and, but once you put NASA on a resume, I mean, that's all you need, right?
It's a good column to check off. Just yes,
Right,
NASA, right there.
right. See, I thought it'd be a little bit more successful in my dating life to say I work for NASA, but unfortunately, when you're in Houston, everyone works for NASA, right? Or oil and gas, so it didn't go as far.
You'll just have to branch out a little further.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I decided, I don't know anything about shellfish. I don't know anything about boat operations. I don't know anything about the Pacific Northwest, but if I'm really set on this diving thing, if that's really, something that I enjoy, want to pursue a career, and then I've got to be willing to go to where the diving jobs are at. And that's what led me up here, and I've been here for 4 years. And
cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Are there any physical adaptations that most divers have? Like, do you have an increased platelet count or something weird biologically that makes you more attuned to diving over time?
I would say if you get into the really deep diving where you're really getting into different atmospheric pressures that are going to be affecting, your body in ways that humans weren't really supposed to be exposed to. They say, if you ever want to have kids, then go ahead and freeze your sperm and have that as a backup plan for people that do the really deep diving. So I don't think my little boys are having an issue. So I haven't gone deeper than 130 feet. That's recreational limits are like 120.
Right.
So, I dabbled with that depth limits, but most of my job operations we're looking at about 25 feet to 80 feet of water. Okay. And they're usually very boring because where shellfish usually end up are just sandbars, sand banks.
Yeah.
So it's not like these really colorful Florida Key reefs or anything like that I'm diving on. It's muddy, it's clay, it's silt, it's dirt, and the excitement is if you come by a seal or a sea lion or a big old lion's mane jellyfish, and that's the highlight of being a working diver, I suppose. It's not all colorful fish and reefs and saving the whales. Although our mission is always saving the orcas and the salmon, and you have to sell it to the people of the state of Washington, I guess, that we're doing some good out there. We're not just destroying the seabed and removing the shellfish. We're saving whales and orcas and the salmon.
One of the crossovers that just kind of popped in my head here, since you're talking, TV, film, and scuba diving, is there's usually a big demand for safety operators for scuba. Like anytime someone's doing a water stunt, you need those scuba divers under the water. Do you think has anything like that ever crossed your mind as a potential career?
Yeah, I did one dive with some sharks inside of a cage, and I will say that it's exciting. It's even better when they got it on camera. And you're throwing some blood in the water to get that shot, because you have to add drama, right? We know how reality TV works. It can't just be a guy in a cage and some sharks just kind of looking at you and you looking at them. You got to spice it up, and it's a rush. Like, I would totally jump on board for that kind of stuff. And there's one diving job that I was looking at in Las Vegas, changing light bulbs. I guess there's millions of light bulbs underwater in Vegas, and that's like enough to justify a full-time job for a diver. That's like
the people that have to change the light bulbs on the top of all the radio towers and things. Oh, it's like same thing. It's like there's a light there, someone's got to change the bulb.
Right. So, I mean, I guess it just depends on the quality of work at that point, because one of the jobs at NASA was vacuuming the pool. It's an endless job, right? I mean, we're talking 2.2 million gallons. It's basically to fill your 40 hours. Hey, go down there and use a vacuum, and we'll play you some tunes on the Airwater speaker, and just make it look like you're doing something.
Right.
Which I took the free time to explore the space station for the most part. Like, I'm vacuuming, but
I really want to make sure this area is clean over here.
Right.
I haven't seen this
because if there's
area.
no astronauts in the pool, then the lights were all basically off. So you're working in very low light, in a huge swimming pool with very, very little supervision. So boys will be boys.
Indeed. Indeed.
Probably the biggest sport I got to play around with.
Well, unless you have any questions relevant to topics at hand to send my way, we're pretty much right at midstream mix-up point.
Oh,
here.
Oh, nice. Let's go midstream mix-up.
Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the midstream mix-up. I do like that one. It's a good.
I thought it was gonna be like an intermission. See, I should
That was
probably
it.
have
That was
watched
it.
one of your things.
That was it. So
Oh,
mystery mix up. We're gonna 180 the conversation here. TV
okay.
show Oak Island.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Let's talk. I watched a couple episodes.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of funny watching people try to hype things up that aren't as exciting as they're being played out to be.
Right.
But
Right.
yet, there's still an allure that lingers.
Right. It's the American dream, right? Like no one went west because of the fur trade and the logging industry, right? Like everyone went
Mm,
west because of gold, right?
right.
The idea that you can strike it rich is, an appealing story. And the Oak Island story, there's enough there where you want to believe, and
Right.
especially after watching them for seasons and seasons, it's just like they're dumping millions of dollars into it. I mean, the show's making them revenue,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
at least they figured out a way to make some kind of money. The gold is in the production, but it's like you start cheering for them, right? Because you get
Mm-hmm.
to know the characters, you get to know everyone involved, and you get to learn the history of it all. And it's like, man, I just really hope something's here. And if it's not, then they just need to figure it out and call it quits. Like they keep talking about the big dig is what they're going to do, and they're going to just finally excavate the entire money pit
Right.
and see if they can solve this mystery once and for all.
They have that
That would be
giant.
the end of the show.
They have
But
that giant tube thing that they work on.
right, right.
So.
But no, anything that has to do with like a treasure type story, like I get sucked right into that. They have the Barren Sea Gold where these divers are down there, just
Yes.
And they have like 5 or 6 seasons of it's basically the same thing every episode, but they have such a way to film it and make it dramatic that
Right.
you keep watching.
I kind of really like the
And
series Ghost Mine, and I wish they did a third season in that new plot they found in another location. But it was a fun it's a gold show and it's a ghost show in one, and it's like
oh man, they're
it's
double
great.
dipping.
It's great.
Right,
It's great. I loved it. So
man. Yeah, no, I spend a lot of time on that History Channel watching like the aliens. What is it? Ancient aliens and
ugh, that I can't get behind. I
the
can't do it.
conspiracy theories. And
I can't get behind the ancient
it's
aliens.
humorous because like the people that are talking don't even believe what they're saying, and you can see it in their tone and their body language. They're just like, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they have their audience, and they're just like, well, maybe aliens visited us. Maybe we are the aliens. I mean, it's fun to think about. Like I said, I was a philosophy minor,
Mm-hmm.
so I took a ton of courses that, or basically, I don't know why you would need a degree in philosophy, but it's good to know that for people that just like to think, that there's hope that they could be philosophy teachers, right? They could
I
think for a
guess.
living.
I guess.
I don't know
I
what you do with that degree.
I think philosophy serves a much more sociological,
Right.
even
Yeah,
if
if you
not
go on
civilizational purpose. But
right.
that's
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah, you start getting
conversation.
into like society and economics and how, human behavior influences the macro global,
Mm-hmm.
things that are going on. It's definitely interesting. Like even in our lifetime there's been a huge jump in technology.
Yep.
I mean, and just look at my grandfather who didn't have lights in his house when he was a kid. It was still candle lights for the most part because they were way out in a farm that just wasn't close enough to a power generating plant to get power.
Right.
So they were still doing a lot of things by candlelight. And here I am. I got strobes that I can set off in the background with a hotkey.
It is a bit of a jump.
So,
I never
but then you
actually
look
got to
at
watch American Pickle, but I feel like that would be a fun movie to watch.
right, yeah, yeah. But then you see the negative effects of it, like the depression, the suicide, all these stats that are building up with
Mm-hmm.
the amount of consumption of technology that people are absorbing these days, and then the disconnect they start feeling from real people. Like it is interesting to study,
Mm-hmm.
and I think mental health is going to be a big conversation. I mean, it's already becoming a very big conversation,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think technology has a lot to do with the
And it could just be, adaptational growing pains, right? So it's technically a new environment.
yeah.
And I would imagine, animals in deforested areas of rainforest have very similar mental breakdowns as humans would have in
Oh,
this transition of environments. So
right. No,
I think
that's
it's actually quite natural. People always talk about like how unnatural it all is, but in my opinion, it's actually very natural.
Right.
Nature always evolves.
Yeah.
Society always progresses. Things always
Mm-hmm.
change over time. There's a cyclical nature
Right.
to everything. Like, this is actually a very natural process, even if
Yeah.
it's using unnatural elements.
And you could stop and ask if it's good or not, but it doesn't stop the progression. Like
Right?
it's
Like,
still it's
are
still
you
gonna
going to
happen.
stop it? Like, go ahead and try.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
love to see you try to stop it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well,
But
it was a brief midstream mix-up, but I feel like we've already jumped into a couple questions I had. So I'm going to lead off with one
nice.
question, which is
Okay.
kind of two questions in one, and then I'm going to let you take over the second half of the stream.
Nice.
Kind of in that avenue, the one question I had was, how important is it for us to leave Earth? And then tied to that, what we also talked about with like alien involvement. I have a couple of philosophies on what alien life actually is likely to be like. But let's start with the importance of leaving Earth, and we'll go toward the direction of aliens after that, if you're on board.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm on board. I'll say one thing about my job as working on the water is there's a ton of downtime, and depending on which coworker I'm stuck on the boat with, I mean, we go down rabbit hole discussions all the time. And one of the things that he likes to say is we are the aliens that basically we came to Earth because we needed to come to Earth. Like we were sitting here on a pod from our ancestors, and we needed a new planet because intelligence is. I mean, in his mind, intelligence is not seen in a lot of other things like the human intelligence has involved. So
I think that's
that intelligence had to come from somewhere.
Right. I think that's the hairdresser theory. Is there was a very advanced civilization, but when they crashed onto Earth, only like the hairdressers survived, who didn't know how to operate any of the technology. So they had to basically just start over.
Yeah. And well, what I started to tell him, I was like, well, even if we traveled at the speed of light and went to the closest planet we think might be in the habitual zone, the generation that leaves Earth is not going to be the generation that gets to that planet. It's going to be like 5 generations of offspring.
Yeah.
So the people that land on this new planet have no knowledge of what the planet they left is, unless it was sent to them and taught to them. But they still haven't been there and wouldn't have known it and felt it and smelled it and tasted it. Like the way the humans that left Earth would have. So it'd still be a very new experience, and you're not going to have all the resources that was left on Earth. Obviously, you can only take so much with you. So it would very much be like a new generation of people starting the human race all over again. Mm-hmm. Unless we figure out the wormhole thing or teleporting or, breaking apart our molecules and putting it back together. I guess that's teleporting.
But is it, or is it just like faxing yourself, right?
Right.
It would be more efficient to just have the molecules in both locations and just deconstruct it in one spot and rebuild it in another, rather than trying to send the molecules those long distances, right?
And
so
I think the next evolution of humans is the more we get connected to robotics and systems, like we're just going to be integrated with technology.
Digital consciousness. Yeah,
exactly. That was artificial intelligence was one of the philosophy classes I took, and it was actually really interesting to think about. Well, unless you have the human soul, you can argue is what makes a person, and it's not so much just a bunch of electrons firing off in your brain and generating thoughts and creating pathways between the left and the right and all that stuff. That if the human body can do it, then we can get a computer to do it, basically. And is it sending a life form? Is it sending the human species out to space if we basically created a computer to be like a human, or even put a human brain inside of a mech?
Yeah, just make a human being consciousness the ship, and then just have the ship travel as far as it needs to, as long as it needs to.
A Dan Brown novel that basically said humans are going to be the next evolution of humans is connected to computers, and you won't be able to tell the difference.
I believe it.
We're all going to be binary, or what is it, bicentennial? in just 30 years from now, and the progression I've seen in my life in technology, I could believe it. The advancements in medicine that we see, and the cloning and everything else that they're doing, and breaking down the DNA structure of what every little strand does. And it's crazy to just know the progression that
Yeah.
we've seen in our lifetime. And then when I'm that old guy that doesn't understand the new kid technology, you know,
Yeah.
it'll get to that point.
Will be crazy. So going back into more like what an alien might actually be. Here's my thoughts on
Okay.
the matter.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Um, Looking at Earth, we have what 7 different kingdoms of life on the planet:
Yeah, I
multicellular
think
and singular
that's
cellular, plants with a chemical-based consciousness, animals with a electronic-based neurological consciousness. So even on Earth, not only are there like 7 different kingdoms of life, but there's multiple forms of consciousness. And
right.
that's just one iteration. Now, we do share DNA in common, and the interesting thing about DNA is that you can create amino acids in most planets that have lightning,
Hmm.
and the ribosomes in your cells that kind of replicate DNA are themselves DNA.
Okay.
So, DNA being made of, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and the universe mostly being made out of carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, it's very likely that
Right.
DNA just creates on planets, and ribosomes, especially, being this self replicating DNA. But the jump from just being self replicating DNA to a cell, right,
Mm-hmm.
is a jump. And
Yeah.
so, even just developing a cell might not be, likely. Maybe it's just one big cell that kind of
Right.
compartmentalizes itself into different functionalities or things like that. But that's only even just going around this DNA biological route. There could be crystalline consciousnesses. There could
Right.
be gaseous
I mean, the
collectives of
universe gets
consciousness.
bigger every time we look at it, so the possibilities just
Right.
continue to grow with our
So
knowledge and understanding
from
of
a
space.
from a business management perspective, it makes sense to look for life that is genetically oriented because that's the most
Right.
common, so the most likely you're about to see. But I think philosophically, it's more likely that the first consciousness or life that we find will not be DNA. It could very well be a different kind of consciousness that doesn't
Hmm.
exist on Earth. But maybe that's just
Right.
wishful thinking on my part. The mathematics are not in my favor for sure.
Well, one interesting thing about space is when we're looking at it, it's always in the past, right? So we're seeing
Yes.
new stars be born, but that light, by the time it reaches us, is millions of years old. So,
Yes.
it's at this point, that new star could very well have. I mean, the galaxy is just so big, right? I mean, to think
Too big.
and also to think if humans is the pinnacle of intelligence, then the universe is in a very very I don't know if I trust the humans with the
Well,
fate of the
it's a young
universe.
state, right? I think that's the misconception a lot of people have is they always
Is it?
isolate
Okay.
humans from the rest of everything. But really, we're a part of the universe as much as planets or
Right.
suns or anything like that.
I would
So
like to think
really,
the universe
we
revolves around
are
us.
we are the universe's awareness of itself. And there
Right.
might be better awarenesses of itself in other life forms in other areas of the universe. But to our
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, we are the only instance of the universe's awareness of itself. And only in its infancy. We understand that the universe is infinite and
Right.
that there's an observable universe that's finite but still astronomically huge. But we're at least aware of where we are in that position, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
yes, not that great at understanding things yet, but I would still argue a significant infancy of the universe growing in awareness of itself.
Hmm. Yeah. So I wrote this article. I mean, a blog back in the day when blogging was a thing.
I was a Facebook blogger actually. I did a like a 12 series thing for
Oh,
Facebook
nice. I
way
think this
back when.
was
This was like 12 years ago.
oh, so it was like really
Way
had to
back.
have a college email to even join.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, I think mine was on Zanga, and it was talking about, okay, well, if there's a point of origin with the Big Bang and everything's expanding, then the universe may be infinite, but the physical matter, the space, like the physics is not infinite.
Right.
And I called it the rubber band theory, and I was like, eventually, if a rogue rock goes out to deep space, then all the gravitational force is on one side of it, so it's going
Right.
to eventually force that create an orbit basically and pull it back in. So even though space may be infinite, the observable universe is
Right.
still confined, and it may still be expanding. We can note that things are getting further apart, but at some point, I think the rubber band's going to start pulling back into each other. The big collapse, I think, is already a theory that's out there, and it won't happen in our lifetime, but
Thank
at
God.
some point, these forces will eventually have enough momentum or force to pull back onto each other instead of their current spread that's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to say because as things go in and out of a black hole, you know, if there is a connection between the undescribed dark energy and the expansion of the universe, is that slowly being destroyed by black holes? Right. And
Right.
if it is,
That's a
then
good
yeah,
point.
there will be a gravitic collapse at some point.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
because the
Yeah.
acceleration is slowing down, which means either it loses power over distance, in which case it can only get so big,
Mm-hmm.
or it's weakening because something is happening. So,
Right. I mean, we can only observe it from our perspective, right? Like that.
yep.
That's the entire narrative of the human species is through observations that we've been able to make, and
Mm-hmm.
the Earth from being flat and everything revolving around us to there's a lot more out there, and it's not so flat. Although there's a lot of people that would like to believe it's flat. I don't know where this resurgent of flat Earth theorists have come about,
I'm
but
just trying to figure out why only the Earth is flat. That's a question that's never been answered. Why is only the Earth flat? I don't understand.
right, right. I don't know. I want to find someone that legitimately knows that believes flat Earth because I think most of them are just trolls. It's just
There's some
the
trolls
the
out there, but there's
there's like an internet community of them, and they're
there are
like, "What can
there
we
are
what
real
can we
people
do
there.
this year? What
Right,
new
right.
thing can we bring up that's gonna just put the scientific
And
community
it's
on
always that
edge?"
thing where they have an explanation for everything, but if you put all the explanations together, they don't agree. And then you like
Right.
ask them like, so how do you resolve these four different conflicting ideas that you've used to describe these instances? And they're like, I don't know, we haven't figured it out yet. It's like, or maybe it's wrong. Usually,
Right.
usually if you have two conclusions that don't agree, mathematically the solution is, well, clearly it's incorrect. The answer is false.
Right.
That's
Right.
usually what happens at that point.
One of the astronauts were telling me about the early idea behind being able to orbit the planet, and they're like, if we put a cannon on top of a mountain and we shoot that cannon, with so much force that as it drops, it's going with the curvature of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was 1400s or something. People
Yeah.
were thinking about this, like because
Yeah.
that's when cannons were relevant, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, if I shoot a cannon with this much gunpowder, it goes this far, and then with this catapult, I can throw it this far. Like, at what point can I put enough velocity behind it to
Right.
where it never touches the ground? And that's the idea of orbit right now, because the
That's the
space
it'd
station,
be
there's tons of gravity up there. They'll tell you there's a ton of it. We're just going at
right.
17,000 miles per hour, so we're not affected by it.
It'd be so easy to prove too. Is like just get on a boat and leave Hawaii with a high-powered telescope, and Hawaii will disappear from the bottom up.
Oh, yeah.
There's no other explanation as to why that
Like,
happens.
was it like 7 miles or something for a 5 foot person to see the curve of the Earth or something? Is your the distance of view that you have?
Yeah.
I guess if you're taller, it might be another mile tacked on there. But
Mm-hmm. So,
whew, all right,
all right. Well,
what do we
take
got
over, sir.
now?
The floor is yours. We can go anywhere you want to go.
All right, well, Shin, it's easy to you watch a streamer and you start thinking, when the camera's off, what is this person? Who is this person? Is he doing magic tricks in the background? He's got the vest, he's got the goatee. Is he a wizard? What is Shin off camera?
I mean, I do practice magic in my spare
Oh,
time, so eerily
see,
accurate, eerily
my
accurate.
my judgments weren't too off.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Are you working on a novel?
I do have a couple literary works in the works. Here's the thing: is I have a lot of big projects and plans that I work on over time,
Right.
and they will only be actualized when opportunities present themselves. So it's going to be like, get the stream popular, do like a small movie thing, do like a TV show thing, do a big movie thing, write a book. Like there's a progress of success that's going to have to come out. So as I get ideas for things, I write it down into the file of that thing.
Okay.
But they're all amalgamous until the opportunity presents itself. And then I'll just lock myself in a room for a week. And
is it like a cryptic book when you open it, like
pretty much, yeah,
it comes out,
Necronomicon, world swallowing, yeah. Definitely.
Nice.
Definitely nothing an amateur should stumble across without any warning.
Right. Well, with me, it's like you go open my closet out back, because I don't have a garage. I have a patio closet, but you see tons of hobbies that I started.
Mm-hmm.
6 months phases. I'm gonna brew beer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the best beer brewer there is. The problem with me, and my friends and family will contest. Like they call it indie-fying. I can't follow a recipe, right? I got to add my own touch to it.
Yes.
It's like a rebellious side of me.
This is just a launching pad. They didn't get it perfect. There's always room for improvement.
Right. So with brewing beer, it's like, look, these people know what they're doing. There's proven recipes. Just follow the steps and make a good beer. But it's like, no, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw some Thai chilies into it because I want to know what happens.
And that's actually something well supported. There are people who went back to like the first written down beer recipes, which was monks in Belgium.
Right.
And the thing they found is every year they had revisions and new recipes. Like the very first beer makers were always improving. It's not like they developed the perfect brew and just stopped with. They had perfect brews that they archived. This was a good one. But always
there's theory they
it.
Understand though the process of making a beer is
right. Yes, they were always changing it, always looking for a different way to do things or a better flavor combination or anything like that.
Right.
So that's inherent in brewing. It's always going to improve over time.
Well, when you bring your 48 cases of beer over to a party, then only like 6 of them are drank. You probably don't have a successful beer on your hand. And I definitely have had the Breaking Bad moment of beers just shattering.
Yes.
In my apartment, just pop, 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 chain reaction. It's sticky everywhere. It's a mess. It smells like beer in your house though for months, which not the worst smell.
Depends who you ask.
Right. So no, it's like I tried to write a few novels. I have a binder similar probably to what you have, just ideas that you dabble with, and it's like you write the exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the meat and potatoes of the story. It's just
I'll fill that in when we go for it. When I get the $1 million, funding campaign, it's like, all right, now I can sit down and flesh it out.
But you see the guitar in the background. I thought I was going to be the next big guitar player,
Yeah.
And that's another 6-month hobby. I have some golf clubs out there. So I'm trying the hunting thing, like Pacific Northwest, tons of opportunity for deer, elk, bear, cougars, and I don't know what I would do with a bear or a cougar. So I'm not out there to hunt for sport, but I know that you can do a lot of things with elk and elk meat.
Elk jerky is the best jerky. Period.
No, I agree.
There's no better jerky than elk jerky.
In Yellowstone, I had elk jerky and buffalo jerky, and I'll say that the elk jerky was far more enjoyable than the buffalo jerky.
It is the perfect jerky. Love it.
But one thing about it's like asking a fisherman for their spot. Like there's a ton of people I know that hunt, but they're offering to invite me along to go hunting with them, and they're not telling me, "Oh, hey, here's a really good spot." So I'm on year 3 of pretending to be a hunter because I only see the animals when I don't have my rifle or when it's not legal hunting season. So it's like they know.
So when I was growing up, actually, I was friends with a guy who lived on a farm. And he and his brother were like the top 2 black powder rifle shooters in the state. Do you have any familiarity with black powder rifle shooting?
No.
It's
the idea of mixing my own explosives and trusting that it's gonna go right. Like you heard my beer story.
Yes.
Oh, here's a recipe for ammunition. Now let Indy make it.
But I'm a big fan of just like. I will support gun ownership, but only to a utility level. I
Right.
don't see the need for recreation. I don't see the need for um, even like militia protection, right? Like
Right.
even as it's worded in the Constitution, I know the Supreme Court ruled it as an individual, but as it's worded in the actual Constitution, it says for the state to regulate a militia. Like it was saying that the federal government cannot tell a state that it can't create its own army. That's what it's saying.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
very clear that's what they're saying.
I
But
say, being from Texas, there's
whatever.
very much, a pro-gun atmosphere down there, and
Oh yeah.
everyone has 30 or 40 firearms at their disposal.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is its own army down there. And I
Yeah.
think, obviously when our founding fathers wrote that, they didn't have, M16s in mind.
Right. Right. And that's the thing is like, the Tommy
They're
gun
still
you can't possess, you can't have a flamethrower. So it's like you're already
right,
allowing for these restrictions to be put in
right.
place for the safety of the public. So it's like
The
yes,
art of war back then was, let's stand in a line in an open field and take turns
yeah,
shooting at each other.
you weren't shooting down a mall full of people with one gun back then.
Right, exactly.
But,
So
so
now I'm on the same page. Like I like the utility use of it. Going out to the range to shoot every once in a while it's fun.
yeah,
There's a little adrenaline rush with
practicing
it.
a skill is fine.
Right. The education side of it, I think, definitely needs to be stepped up because
Absolutely.
there's firearms in society, and like I don't remember learning one thing about a firearm going
Nope.
through,
If
kindergarten
I
through
saw a
12th
gun
grade, right?
just like somewhere, I would not touch it. I'd be like, I know nothing
Oh,
about that. I am not picking that up.
right.
I'm calling the police. Hey, there's a gun here. I don't know what it is. Please pick it up.
Right.
uh, so yeah, what else you got? Where are we gonna go from here?
Cooking.
Cooking.
You look like a guy that has a
Man,
very
you
diverse.
got me figured out. I'm kind of nervous now. You got it. You got me all figured out.
I don't know. I see a lot of similarities. Like Mondays is my experimental cooking day. Like I'll go always on Mondays if I can, because I have 3-day weekends. That's my day where I'm really going to try to make a fancy meal. And once again, I don't follow the recipe, but I get the idea from a recipe and like, okay, let's see how this turns out.
Yeah, in my current living situation, I'm actually out chefed. I'm living with
Oh,
two more proficient chefs, so I don't cook that often currently. But when I'm living on my own, I cook all the time, and it's always an
right,
experiment, and it's lovely. And then
right.
like the whole flow of work of cooking is like have like 10 or 15 different dishes that I keep coming back to, so that by the
Mm-hmm.
time I host my next party, I have like a menu that I can make for everyone.
Oh,
And then it's like,
nice.
okay, party's over, and then I have like then it's like writing the next menu, right? It's like, okay, now we got to find another 10, 15 dishes to work on for 6 months so we can host
Nice,
another
nice.
party and have the menus. So that's kind of how my workflow goes. It's like I'll keep working on something till I get it to the point where I want to share it with people, and then
Right,
I'll have a party share it with people. And it's like, okay, next thing, here we go.
right.
And it's
Yeah.
getting to the point where I'm starting to buy hardware. Like
Oh,
it's like I can't make
stepping it up.
this. I need more hardware.
Your kitchen's just not big enough, I'm guessing.
It's getting to that point where it's like, I'm gonna have to start investing in this now.
Right. No, I let everyone else like mess with the air fryers and the pressure
Ugh.
cookers and the Traeger smokers and like,
Pressure
let
cooker's fine, but air fryer, like, no, stop,
right.
stop.
Well, I do eat a lot of chicken wings, and I think there's like 1,000 different ways. Just like you can cook an egg, like
Yeah.
chicken, you can cook in 1,000 different ways. And trying to find that perfect chicken wing where it's like moist, it comes off the bone easy, but then you
Mhm.
got that nice barbecue sauce on it
Yeah.
that you really want to like be baked in there and have that
Mhm.
crispy bite.
I go with the Alton Brown strategy. So when I was in Delaware, actually, there was an Irish pub, and they had a BFG wing, which was baked, fried, grilled. So they baked
Hmm.
it to get it to temperature and to leach the fat out, and then they fried it to make
Nice.
it crispy, and then they grilled it to get the sauce, like you said, kind of like really
Oh man.
baked on there. But the Alton Brown's
Yeah.
a little different. The Alton Brown is steam and then bake. So you steam it to leach the fat to the surface, and then you let it sit
Right.
overnight. And then you
I
just
like that.
bake it to crisp it out and get the sauce on it. So
Hmm.
that's how
Yeah,
I've
it's
been doing
funny.
it.
My friends come over and I'm like, yeah, we're making chicken wings. And they're like, well, it's been an hour. Like, I thought chicken wings take like 15 minutes. You fry them and they're done. I'm like, no,
Da, 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 da.
listen, just appreciate the wing
Just,
when it's done.
just wait till you
But
taste it.
it's gonna be an hour.
And it's actually good that way because what I do is I make my sauce from scratch as well. So
Right.
like
Yeah, that's something
I'll
new that I'm
steam the
getting
wings the
into
day
now.
before and start working on the sauce, and then the next
Hmm.
day I heat the sauce back up so I can taste it again and like adjust the flavor, and then get the wings into the oven, and then so it's like you have a full day to work on the sauce because the
Right.
wing process takes just as long, which I like.
You run into the problem where you just make way too much, but it's the nature of wanting to cook and enjoying to cook. That
Yeah,
now, as a single guy, I have a fridge full of food that I got to eat for the next week.
yep, yep.
And,
I do one pot a week usually. It's like I'll make like a dinner, and then
right.
that kind of becomes reheated lunch every week or every day of
Hmm.
the week. So I definitely do like the one pot for the week kind of a strategy.
Right.
Works out pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I travel with my job and I get money for buying food on the road, but if I don't spend it on food while I'm traveling, they still pay it to me. So it's almost like
Hmm.
making extra money from the per diem
Yeah.
if I bring my own food on the road. So that's kind of a strategy I've adapted. Let's cook it all on Monday, pack it up with me, bring it
Yep.
with me on the road. Yeah, by Friday I'm tired of it, but you know,
That just makes you
I
want to
don't
cook
cook on
again.
Fridays though. That's
Yep.
that's like I just got back from traveling. It's 7:30 at night, and I just want something to eat. And my guilty pleasure is like going to Taco Bell.
Hey,
And it's no longer like
can't
feeding
knock
an
it.
army for $15 at Taco Bell anymore. It's like you get a combo and maybe one extra thing.
Mm. Although they still have those taco boxes, which are nice.
Yeah, that's true.
If you
Was it
like
like
taco
12
box.
tacos or
Yeah.
burrito combo? I'd say Chipotle is probably my other weakness. There's no good Mexican food in Washington State. I've given up looking.
Makes
Maybe it's
sense.
there.
Makes sense.
I haven't found it. So Chipotle is like my Mexican food fix up here.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I could do a Chipotle burrito once in a while, but just.
No,
I mean, I lived
it
in
was
Colorado
like,
for 4 years, so like I had some good Mexican food. Like,
oh no, yeah,
and
you know
you
what's up
know,
then.
you coming from Houston, you have even better Mexican food.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Well, we have Tex-Mex, but I think like Colorado, you're getting into more of that red chili, green chili, New Mexico style
exactly,
Mexican
yeah,
food
that's the
too.
good
So
stuff.
it's a whole different flavor combination.
Yep.
And
That's
then yeah, just
actually my
the
best chili recipe is buffalo and hatch
hmm.
chilies as the base, and it is
Oh man, now I'm getting
delicious.
hungry. Like
It's
for you, it's
delicious.
already past lunch. I have like 30 minutes till it's. Actually, I'm the guy on the boat that's eating my lunch at like 9 o'clock. I can't bring food with me on the water. Like I'll pack my lunch.
Yeah.
I'll even eat breakfast at the hotel if it's available for free, but I'm not a big breakfast eater.
Hmm.
So come 9 o'clock, like I'm ready to get into my lunch. And everyone
Right.
hates it because once they smell food and see food, like now
Yeah.
they're
Yeah. Yeah.
hungry. So now we're out there till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and all of our food is gone by like 9:30 or 10. Get off the water, we're ready to hit the pub and get some more food, basically. I should probably throw some exercise in the mix somewhere at some point, but
I mean, boat work and scuba diving, that's pretty physically demanding.
yeah, that's true. Sitting on the boat all day, not so much. But once you get in the water, there's some work involved for sure. There's 2 to 3 knot currents sometimes that you're having to fight trying to stay in a single spot. So
Hmm.
it could be fun, especially if it's just like I'm done with my task and now I'm just going to let the current take me, and you just drift for like a mile,
Hmm.
which is fine in the Puget Sound. You come up and it's like, oh well, there's land on every side of you basically. So you're never too scared about just getting pulled out in the ocean and not having your support vessel near you.
Right. Right.
Right.
Good stuff.
And I will say with the hotels, like when I first started traveling, it was one backpack with a few clothes, and that was it. 4 years now into traveling, I have a suitcase, I have my laptop bag, I have my work backpack. I'm bringing groceries with me. Like it looks like I'm moving in every time I travel. I've got all this stuff, and I used to steal all the shampoo bottles and soap bottles, and
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know all that. I have a cabinet full of my. I'm like, when am I ever going to use these? I need to find, I don't know,
Just
a
start
place to
using them.
donate them to,
Just start
or yeah,
using them.
start combining them and say, hey, I made my own soap. Like looting every hotel I go to. Like, what at what point do I plan to use all this? I will say, Pacific Northwest has figured out coffee, and a lot of these hotels carry. It's not just the K cups up here. They've got their own little local bean shop that they're
Right.
buying from, and
Right.
yeah, I will take that coffee. If I'm not drinking it, it's coming home with me. So I haven't had to buy coffee in a very long time, unless I
Nice.
want to go buy coffee. I have a surplus.
That's good. That's good.
And I don't know if you drink wine or not, but that was something also that I've learned about since moving up here with the Columbia River, and the Columbia River Valley makes
Yes.
very good grapes.
Yes.
It may not be Napa Valley, quality or marketed that way, but didn't know anything about wine when I moved up here and started dabbling in the different styles. I still can't tell you the difference between like a Merlot and a Cabernet, except for the label tells me it's one or
Get
the
off my
other. I
show.
don't even know if a
Get off
wine
my show.
expert.
I don't want you here anymore. You're done. That's it.
Oh,
We're turning it. We're shutting it down. We're shutting it
look.
down. That's it. We've crossed the line.
You get into craft beers, like there's a clear difference between, you know, a stout and an IPA, or a porter and a bock, and
Yep.
they look different, they smell different, they taste different, and wines, it's red or it's white, right? Like, and then there's the blends, and okay. Well, I buy 6 bottles of wine to fill my little crate thing, and it lasts me, I don't know, 2 months maybe. So when
Fair
I do
enough.
open a bottle, I finish the bottle. It's typically how that goes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And all I know is when I like one, I'll write it down to remember it. But there's
Right.
still the whole row of wines I haven't tried. Right, so it's all about that exploration. And
Yeah.
I will say that I've developed a taste at least for wine, because at first it's, the tannins can be like
Yes.
overpowering when
You
you're
got to learn
drinking
how
it.
to
It's very
manage it.
bitter, and it's like, I don't know how people enjoy this at all, but now it's like the sweetness hits me almost instantly, and
Mm-hmm.
it, I almost prefer wine over beer now. I'll throw that out there. I may not know what I like about it or the different styles, but
Well, yeah, if you're looking to like explore that more, definitely like don't do the blends. Like get just one type of grape, one type of wine at a time, so you can really
right.
like start analyzing the differences. There's the 5 T's, or is
Mm-hmm.
it? Is it the 5 T's? I don't know. There's five something, but essentially there's the smell, there's the
Right.
lip, the teeth, the tongue, and the throat. Like
Okay.
there's different things you experience with different
So
wines.
the swirling it in the cup and smelling it is a technique
That's the
that
first.
isn't just for
That's the
show.
first taste. Yeah,
there's
that's the
there's a
first
reason
taste.
behind it.
And
Okay.
then there's how it feels on your lips, how it feels on your teeth, how it feels on your tongue, how it feels on your throat.
Right.
So if you
And
think about it in those terms, you'll start noticing differences,
mm-hmm.
and then you'll start developing a preference. Like I'm a Merlot guy because I like everything back in the throat. Same with like spicy food. I don't like that cheeks on
Interesting.
fire. I like the back burn in the back
Right.
of the throat. So
Huh.
wine and spicy food for me is all about that throat taste. So
Right. Hmm.
that's where I go in that direction.
That gives me
So
something to think about as I'm drinking it, because
yeah.
it's more of a pinky up thing for me. I have one snifter. I haven't bought a bunch of different wine glasses or anything, but I
Mm-hmm.
drink a lot of dark beers, the stouts and stuff, so they go real well in
Yeah.
I think it's called a snifter.
Yep.
So that's what I've been drinking my wines out of.
That's
And
fine.
of course, when I pour it, it's all the way to the rim. My friend's like, "That's not a glass of wine." I was like, "Look, I'm not a bartender here. You don't come regulating me
Yeah.
about my
Yeah.
my alcohol pours. I can overserve."
See, my solution is I just have cartoonishly large wine glasses.
Right.
The wine glasses have if you fill it up to like the regular line, like the 1/3 of the way
Mm-hmm.
up, it's like half a bottle. Like
Oh, nice.
so
No, that's what I need to
looks
get then.
from a distance it looks like just a normal bottle of wine, but there's actually like half a bottle of wine.
Nice. No, I totally need to get one of those. It's like,
Yeah,
where's my
just get a
friend's
larger wine
judgment
glass.
now?
And it's
It's
actually good
supposed to
too
go to the
because
curve or something, right?
well,
Right
yeah,
on the
because you
wine.
want the most surface area. So you want
Hmm.
you want the top of the wine at the widest part of the glass. So
Gotcha.
even technically, right, the perfect glass for wine would be a martini glass because
Hmm.
the widest part is always the surface as it goes down, right? So as you
Yeah.
drink it,
Yeah,
you're
it makes
maintaining
sense.
that the surface is at the widest part of the glass.
Right.
So,
Uh,
but the idea of
Martinis
a
is one
wine glass is
category.
the idea of the wine
I
glass is it traps the smell, right? So you have the wine at the widest part, and then you have like a column of wine infused air above it,
Okay.
and that's kind of the point with the wine glass. But technically, for strictly drinking, not smelling, martini glass would be
Right.
perfect.
Right.
But
Now, do you have a collection or an alcohol cabinet of beers, wines, liquors? I mean, what
scotch
is
and
your
wine.
inventory like?
Scotch and wine is
Okay.
my catalog. Beer, I'm not the biggest beer fan. I'd rather just have something on tap,
Right.
seasonal, dark, right? Like so, just like in the summer, maybe I'll do like a pale ale, but like in the
Right.
fall, give me a stout. In the winter, give me a double bock. In the spring,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, give me some more wine.
Nice. Now, what about the spice beers, the pumpkin beers, or these seltzers that are all coming out? Like, you,
um, I, as long as they're not called beer, I'll go for it. Right? Like, I did Smirnoff when I was in college. I love Smirnoffs. Those were good. That's
right,
essentially
right.
just a seltzer,
It's a
right?
rite of passage.
So they're
The
essentially just
Mike's Hard
seltzers. I'm fine with
lemonades.
that. Yeah, those are all. I
So
think they're
that
fine.
that
Just don't call them a beer because they're not a beer.
right there. There's beverages and even food that's like I consume, but it's not like I market it. Right? Like
Right.
I make chimichangas and add my own chili and cheese to it. It's not a meal I would serve to a date if I'm bringing her over,
Right.
but it's like putting in the pizza rolls in the oven just to add that little extra flair and crisp them up instead of putting them in the microwave, and then having a dip to go with them.
Right. Right.
It's like I might have some smeared offs and stuff in my fridge, but come party time, that stuff goes away. I bring out the fancy stuff.
Exactly.
But I will say everyone leaves their crap beer in my fridge because there's stuff in there from I haven't had a party
I
since
get
I mean
that
it's
every
2020.
party.
Like
There's always like the things people brought to drink, and they're like, "Oh, but you have so much better stuff. Let me just put
right,
this in your fridge and forget about it
it's there.
conveniently."
I was like, I'm pretty sure I left this at your house last time I went over.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
I don't do a lot of entertaining anymore, so I can mostly keep on hand what I want. It's just as the single guy, it's always me going to them because it's
yes.
just
Yes.
easier that way. And there's some friends I probably wouldn't even see if it wasn't for me making an effort to go to them because it's like I call and like, well, let me see what the wife says or let me see what
Right.
my
Right.
kid's
Right.
schedule is, and it's like, you know what? I'll come watch your daughter's gymnastics. Let's just go hang out. We can have a beer afterwards. Like, it's just getting in that checking that social bubble, right?
Yep. Yep.
All my friends are married and they envy the single life. Like, oh man, you can just go do whatever you want. I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, there's some benefits to both, right? Like
Yep.
you can make that argument, but the ability to go up and just do what I want to go do and spend my money how I want to spend it, it's definitely a nice perk. And now that they're all older and have bigger houses and I can go to their house, it's a lot easier. Just I'm coming to you guys. Y'all don't come over here. I don't want
Yep.
your kids. I don't have a kid friendly house. I learned that very quickly. When I had some people visit me from Texas, they brought both their kids up here, and it was like a 3 and a 4 year old, and every drawer was open. I mean, we're
Yep.
talking, sharp tools, knives, things that are just right there for a child to access. Chemicals in
Yep.
under the sink.
Yep.
All of my electronics by my TV. I mean, kids are curious and they want to touch everything, so I have to make notes for future references to kid-proof my house if I'm going to have visitors from out of state stay here.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, you're a little fatigued from your festivities over the last couple days. We're
Yeah.
at about an hour and 40 minutes in. Anything else you wanted to go over as we approach the end of the show here?
Well, I think at this point it's rambling on. I could talk for forever. As part of my radio TV degree, there was a
Filling time.
requirement to work the radio station, and my segment was night rock from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And
Ooh.
basically
Nice.
twice a week I had to work the radio station, and that was my segment. And for the most part, everyone who worked that segment just played music the whole time. But for me, hey, this was an opportunity to shine. And the teacher called me up. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and they're like, Indy, you've been talking for 45 minutes straight. This isn't the Indy show. This is night rock. Like, play some music. And I'm like, you and like one other radio is listening to me right now.
Yeah.
And I know the one other radio because it's the guy that's the security guard over at the Tyson's chicken facility protecting the chickens, which he doesn't do a good job. Millions of chickens die there every day. So I don't know what he's really protecting anyone from, but he would call in and he was like, man, you won't believe this. I just saw some chupacabras cross the railroad tracks. And he was he was like my only listener, I'm pretty sure. But every day I would take his call.
Nice.
I'd have to record it because you never know what he's going to say, but then
Yep.
we'll play it back on the air. And he was a hoot to play with. And there's something called radio silence, and you're not supposed to have radio silence. So you're either playing a song or you have some type of promo playing, you're reading the news. So I almost struggle with silence, actually. Like, it's too quiet. I need a fan to sleep.
Right, right.
My college degree has messed with me.
Yeah, it's a weird world to get into. Something actually I don't shy away from actually in streaming. Like I'll if a moment requires me to not be on screen for 2 minutes, I'll do it. Like I'll do
Oh
it.
yeah.
So
You have those that way, that pause, that
hmm
just it brings the people in closer. It's like you start listening more intensely, like what's going on? What's happening?
it has its uses.
And
Absolutely.
then you just point like, what's this? It's good. No,
Sometimes you don't
there's
need words.
there's some entertainment value there for sure.
Hmm.
But
Good stuff.
no, I mean it's been good to be on this talk show. I appreciate you bringing some exposure to for at least me. I'm not a really big streamer right now, and I don't even know my level of commitment to streaming. I figure if I'm on a computer for hours and I'm playing video games, that I might as well go live and maybe someone will enjoy the content. But
Absolutely.
for the most part, I'm more of a consumer of Twitch than a
I mean,
producer of
that's how I
Twitch.
started, and now look at me. So you never know.
Right, right.
You
It's
never
it's
know.
when I jump all in and I buy the cameras and the mics and the green screen and get
Yep.
all these graphics that I know I'm committed. And I'm almost at that threshold. I can feel myself leaning that direction.
Well, we'll see how it all
Um,
transpires.
I do have a tournament coming up. If I could do a
Yeah, yeah.
plug,
Ladies and
Oct-
gentlemen, we are rapidly approaching the end of the YouTube portion of the show, so thank you all for watching up until this point. We will continue with a little bit of chat Q&A after this, but only live every Saturday on Shen's TV's channel on Twitch. It's the only way to catch that portion of the show. TwistedIndy, thank you. This has been a lovely, relaxed conversation.
hey,
I don't think I've had a more normal
thank you.
conversation on this show ever. It's good to just talk like a real human being. It's nice.
Right, right, right. I'm glad it wasn't 2 hours of marbles because there's only so much of that
Yeah,
discussion we could
for
probably
sure.
have.
So, do you have anything to promote?
I do. I do. I have a marbles tournament, which was a terrible idea because I haven't even ran races outside of building tracks and testing tracks. I've not streamed races. I streamed tilted
I would
and I
recommend a
streamed.
practice tournament a week before, just
That's
to
what
make
audio
sure
said.
you
Maybe you should know
yeah
how to make a leaderboard
do a
and
practice
do.
tournament a week before, just to make sure everything's
Okay,
working for sure. But that's
right,
October 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So
correct.
make sure
Yeah,
y'all jump in on that. I'll be trying to make a old map come back to life to feature in
nice.
that
Yeah, I
tournament as
appreciate
well.
that.
So that'll be good.
And there will be a cash prize attached to it all.
Woo.
So the idea is going to be casino based.
Nice.
And as the tournament evolves, the progressive jackpot evolves with it. So there will be
Oh,
opportunities throughout the 3 hours for
gotta
that
love those
prize pool
progressive
to continue to
jackpots.
grow. So
Good
you'll have to
stuff.
tune in to check it out. I feel like I'm biting off more than I can chew with this because
Hey,
I don't
just
have a
go for
stream
it.
deck.
Just go
I'm
for it.
using a whole lot of graphics and it's all going to be done manually. So you very well might watch a very scuffed tournament.
Nothing
But
wrong with that. Just embrace it, whatever it turns out to
it's
be.
basically a mini game incorporated with marbles.
Nice.
And we'll hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
For sure, for sure. Well, thank you again, TwistedIndy. Great to
Hey,
have you on
no
the show.
problem. Yeah, it was good talking to you.
And we'll see you all for the next episode.